it wasn't until I stopped all of that and put my trust back in Jesus. I literally, the minute I did that, I had this peace about the whole situation that I had never felt. One night, we were already arguing about something, probably just because our relationship was just slowly getting toxic. And it was kind of just like a breaking point. It was like, all right, we're done. It was devastating for me. Definitely like the hardest time of my life. Because in my head, I was like, I want him to be my husband. I wanted to be with him, but I knew I couldn't unless he was different. And then he told me he wanted to marry me. Like he was like,
that night?
Yeah, like he was like, I know what I want now. I want to be with you. I'm ready to like settle down and get married. All this stuff. And I was just like, what?
Welcome back to the Salty Podcast. I'm so excited to introduce my new guest. I have Sophia Watts.
Hello.
So we actually met through social media about a year ago.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
It's crazy.
Like I remember watching your videos and be like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. And then we both followed each other.
Yeah.
And did I message you first?
You messaged me, yeah. And I had already followed you for like, I think half a year.
Oh, wow.
Or I had known of y'all, like on TikTok. I remember the mustache videos and everything. So.
Yeah. Was that the first video you saw?
Yeah.
That's funny. The first video I saw of y'all was the salt video.
That's what most people say because it got the most views, I think, any video has.
Okay, so let's just talk about social media for a minute. So you and your husband, started on social media when y'all were dating.
Yep.
Now you're married and you just had a baby. So you want to talk about just kind of your start to social media?
Yeah. So it was in June of 2022. I just picked up the camera one day. We were in the car and I had seen a funny trend on TikTok. Taylor, my husband, didn't even have TikTok. So he had no idea about like the trends and everything, which was really good at the time. Now I can't do anything like that because he's always on TikTok. But I was like, oh, I'm going to do a funny little trend prank thing on him. And we were at Sonic and it was like this boomerang thing where I was like, hey, I'm going to take a boomerang of us, just smile really quick. And I just filmed us doing that. And I was like, oh, that one wasn't good. And we did it like 60 times in the video.
I remember the trend, yes.
Yeah. And he had no idea. And it went viral. Like I posted it and it went viral. And I was like, okay, we got to post again. And then the next one went viral. And then literally every single one, it seemed like they just kept going viral. And because Taylor was so funny and I was like, that's why I started in the first place.
Did you expect them to go viral?
No, I didn't. I was just like, I always wanted to do social media, but I was like, I'm not cool enough. I don't have anything to film.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to film Taylor. And so I was like, oh, this is working. This is great. So no, I didn't. I just posted it because I thought it was funny. Quickly, within a month, we had 1 million followers. And then within 2 months, we had 2 million. 3 months, 3 million, and then it slowed down from there and everything. But it was so crazy.
I remember like everybody, I think too, y'all were a young couple. Mm-hmm. Y'all had such a good picture of a healthy relationship, and especially for young girls. Yeah. I'm sure they were just like, oh my gosh, this cute couple.
That was like all our following was, still is. It's just like younger girls.
Oh,
I feel like.
That's so sweet. And how does that make you feel? Is that like nerve-wracking knowing you are an influencer, but you're an influence to these young girls?
Yeah, I know it is. It's crazy. I don't know. It was a weird feeling because it's like all of a sudden all these eyes are on you and everyone's just like, they like you, they look up to you. So, it's not nerve-wracking. It's just, I don't know. It's cool. I don't know. It's really cool.
It's so wild now how social media works. And I remember being younger and watching YouTubers and watching couples and now we do that.
I know. It's so weird.
It's such a
it hasn't even clicked for me. Like, I'm like, people think of us as like the same way I thought of these people that I watched. I don't know. It's just crazy.
I know. Who was a couple you watched when you were?
Cole and Savannah.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I still watch them.
Yeah.
So
I know, and like, this isn't about them, but when they started, they've been doing it so long now, and people grow up watching you. So with y'all, they've watched y'all date, go from dating to engaged to married.
Have a baby.
So
crazy.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
So have you always been a Christian?
Yeah. So it's crazy. That's like a part of I guess we'll get into the whole testimony thing, but for the longest time I had a really hard time with the question of what's your testimony and things like that, because all the testimonies I've ever heard are like these deep stories of like, I wasn't a Christian. I went through all these like hardships and then I came to know the Lord. It's just like these crazy, like goosebump stories that are just like, wow. And I would just sit there, like I'd be at church camp and they'd be like, all right, we're going to go around and share our testimonies. And everyone would tell those stories. And I'm sitting there like, I don't have anything like this. And I'm like, have I not experienced my, and I'm so confused. It just made me so nervous every time someone would ask me that. I don't know why.
Did it make you doubt, like, if it meant you really were or not?
Not necessarily. Like I knew I was a Christian. I just didn't understand. Like it was just confusing to me because I was like, maybe I know I'm a Christian, but I'm like, is something gonna happen? But as I got older, I started thinking about it. And so basically, I cannot remember a time in my life where I didn't know Jesus. Like when I was 4 years old, I remember sitting in my parents' bed and we're talking about Jesus and Peter and heaven and everything. So I truly cannot remember a time where I didn't know Jesus. And just over the years, it seemed like just such a steady growth of like my relationship with the Lord. It wasn't like 1 year where I hit just this turning point where it was like, oh, I got really strong in my faith that year. I don't remember or recall a time like that. It just seemed like my whole life, my parents taught me it every day, all the time. And so it just seemed like as I got older, my relationship with the Lord just grew. I got baptized when I was like 11. And so that's why when people ask me about testimony, I'm like, people are like sharing theirs for an hour. And I'm like, I've known Jesus my whole life, it seems like. And so, but yeah, I've had a relationship with him my whole life. There was a time in my life, more recent than not, where I felt like I truly had experienced a hardship for like the first time. It seemed like my life, I was living in like fairy tale almost for the longest time. And then when I truly experienced a hardship, that's when I feel like things got a little tested and stuff.
So before your hardship, you said, I mean, basically it probably helped you get through your hardship because the foundation was already set.
Yes.
And I feel like people can relate because not everybody will have super hard things that they go through, even at a young age, that's going to set the ground for like their testimony story is going to just be this massive overpouring of God's love in their life and like redeeming them of things. And so I think that's okay. Like that's like, I want to encourage you in that way.
Yeah.
That your testimony in and of itself is still so unique and beautiful. And honestly, what a blessing.
I know. As I got older and I kind of realized, I was like, well, I mean, I'm grateful for it. I hope that my kids can grow up to say they don't remember a time where they didn't know Jesus. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
wanna,
exactly.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah.
And I'm sure you being a mom now, you're remembering things that your parents did that set that foundation so early.
Yes.
And
yeah, I want to be everything my parents wanted me.
I love that. So. That's so sweet. And that's like a testament to them. Like, I'm sure you're so appreciative of them and how they did that. Like, I want to talk about them more in a little bit and just how, because I want to learn, you know, I feel like a lot of people can learn from that. And just as being parents, because it's scary. Like Hunter and I talk about all the time, like it's such a huge responsibility to raise world changers as Christians and to be lights. And I feel like if starting at such a young age sets the tone and the path for their life, you know?
100%.
Okay, so let's kind of get into your hardship.
Yeah.
So you said it was recent.
More recent, yeah.
Okay.
I would say 2 years ago.
Okay.
So are we getting into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so if you know anything about people watching, if you've heard me and my husband's story, you would know that we actually broke up for a period of time during our dating years. So for a little timeline, we started dating March of 2020. And we ended up breaking up that following March, so a whole year. So we dated for a year. And backstory to that, when we started dating, I was like, had a super strong relationship with the Lord. At that point, I still hadn't experienced like hardships. It felt like, you know, obviously little things here and there, but nothing huge. And so I had a really strong relationship with the Lord, and he did too, as far as I thought. I wouldn't have started dating him if I didn't think he had a relationship with the Lord. As time went on, you know, it was kind of becoming a little bit more clear that he knew who Jesus was and, you know, what that meant, but he didn't really have a super strong relationship with the Lord, and it started to just show in certain areas of our relationship. And so we started dating in March. He was actually going off to college freshman year that August, and so that was putting us at like a 2-hour long distance. Nothing crazy, but still already that's like putting a little, not dent in the relationship, but already making things a little bit harder. And so he went off to college, and everything was fine. Like first semester, you know, it was tough, and he was coming home all the time and spending so much time with me. And then it wasn't until about second semester he started just making friends, and, college can be tricky. A lot of the people sometimes there can be not the greatest influence. I mean, that's not always the case, but you know how college can be sometimes. Yeah. And so he started developing relationships with people. And since he was in a relationship with me, he couldn't partake in a lot of things that other people were. And so he would kind of sit back in his dorm or whatever, and then everyone would leave and they'd come back and they'd be talking about how much fun they've been having and all the things they were doing. And he was just like, I've just been sitting here and things like that. So basically people just started having like an influence on him. And one night we were already arguing about something, probably just because our relationship was just slowly getting toxic, whatever word you want to use. And it was kind of just like a breaking point. It was like, all right, we're done. And when that happened, he kind of now felt like he had some sort of freedom, and he kind of took a bad path from there. And we were broken up. And so although it was kind of a mutual decision, I wanted to be with him, but I just knew I couldn't because of like the situation. Like I wanted him to be different. So I wanted to be with him, but I knew I couldn't unless he was different, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He was ready to just be done and kind of go take a different lifestyle at the time. And it was devastating for me. Definitely like the hardest time of my life. Because in my head, I was like, I want him to be my husband.
Yeah.
But
had y'all talked about getting married?
Yes. Well, like our first date, I was like, I want to get married young, have kids. I was like, it's not going to take me a while. Like a couple months go by to a year. I should totally know by then. Like, and I was ready. Like I wanted to get married. Actually, I had talked about like getting engaged that year, but of course things were just so rocky towards the end of that year that we dated.
Were you already doubting, like even when you are together, because of your relationship with Jesus, where you're like, I don't know if this is what the Lord has for me?
Yes. You could tell it was coming. Like we even had small breakups here and there before this huge were done, because things just we weren't agreeing on things. And I was like, how can you think that if you believe in Jesus? Like, just like, that doesn't make sense. You should be on my side about it because that's what Jesus says. Right. So it doesn't even make sense. So in my head, I wanted him to think the same way as me. So we just kept staying together. And I was like, maybe. And I was like hoping potential, basically. I was like, there's potential, but you cannot hang on to potential for sure. So anyways, that's why I just cut it off. And so he started making a lot of decisions that were not good. And I was seeing them because just mutual friends and things, and we know the same people. And I was just heartbroken, so sad. And of course, like I was back at home. I didn't go to college. I was back at home still just like my same old life, living with my parents. My like whole life felt like it was him. I know that's like a bad thing to say, but it was like that was gone. And then for him, he was starting this whole new lifestyle. Like he was having the most fun time of his life, not even thinking about me. He had new friends, new things to do. And I'm just back at home, all sad. And so
did you feel lonely?
Oh my gosh.
Like and isolated because you were living at home?
Yes.
Did you have like a good community around you at that time?
Not really. Like when he was like my only friend. I had some friends, but it wasn't, they were all off at school too. Everyone went to college. I was just back at home, like by myself, it felt like. And it was. So that is when I started just looking. I was just like, absolutely anything that'll make me feel better, I want to do, because I was so sad. Like I was like, anything that can take my mind off of it, anyone I can hang out with, whatever I can go do. I actually ended up moving to the area where all my friends were at college and everything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I moved and I came up, I was like, I want to go like be a cosmetologist. I'm going to go to school there. And I was just I was like, I want to be where my friends are. If I can't see my friends every day and have someone to hang out with and talk to and distract me, I'm not going to make it. Like I cannot sit in my room and be sad. So I ended up moving for a semester, and I went to like cosmetology school for a semester. Yeah. But it was in a college town, and I started hanging out with people I shouldn't hang out with, based on like what I believed. Like they just weren't good influences. I started doing some things I shouldn't do. And since I did have that super strong foundation built, I never crossed huge lines of, things I shouldn't do and stuff. But as a Christian, looking back, nothing was okay that I was doing.
It was like filling voids that you had.
I was just literally doing anything. And temporarily it was making me feel better. I was having a great time. But then, you get back home or you get back in your room by yourself, and then you're just right back to that empty feeling. And so it wasn't for a couple months. I was just doing that months. And it wasn't until I stopped all of that and put my trust back in Jesus till I literally, the minute I did that fully, it was like I had this peace about the whole situation that I had never felt. Like it was so weird to me because I was like, in my head, I was like, I'll never be able to get over this situation. Like I want to be with him so bad. I can't, like all the things I'm seeing him do, I just can't. Like if I continue to see this, I will never be okay. I'm always going to wish we could be back together. But the minute I gave all that stuff up and put my trust back in the Lord, I literally had such a peace about it. Like I was like, I don't think we're getting back together. I don't know if we'd get back together. I don't know if I'll end up with someone else, but I'm okay with it. Like I feel fine. Like I'm fine with whatever the Lord has for me. And that took almost a year because
from going from so destroyed to filling voids to having a peace and felt okay.
Yes. So it was a long, long time. I know like telling the story, it seems so short, but it was a long, long time.
Well, a year is, I mean, I feel like people would be able to relate in the sense of sometimes you don't, like I was talking about unforgiveness on the last episode, and the process can feel like forever. Like it's always just not oh, okay, I forgive you. It truly is it can be a long process, and really anything we do. And so in that, it took you kind of going back to that isolated spot for God to kind of work on you, like for you to work on yourself.
Yeah.
Did you know in the moments, okay, I don't need to do this, I need to work on myself?
Yes.
And then you went back home?
Yes. So all the times I was doing things I shouldn't be doing, since I did have that strong relationship with the Lord, like my whole life, I knew everything I was doing, I knew it wasn't okay. Like I felt guilt about it all the time. I was embarrassed that like people were even seeing me do certain things or hang around people, just, things like that. I was like, this is so not me. But at the time I was I was so sad. I was like, I can't sit here and feel this way. I have to do this and stuff. And so throughout that time, I would go to church still. Like I would still show up to church. I was in like a Bible study. I was still doing those things. And so it was just constant. Like I was just weighing. I was like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I ended up moving back home after that first semester. And that's what helped me, I feel like, because it made me get away from like the bad people I was around. And so it kind of just helped. It helped me kind of get back on track. I was back with my parents who taught me everything. And they had so many talks with them all the time, and they just helped me. I was able to get back in the Word. It was just, I think it helped me a lot because when I was there, I felt like I couldn't get away from the people and the things. And so when I got back home, just started praying a lot, and I had already known all those things were not good. It wasn't me. And yeah, it took a little bit of time because some of those things were fun in the moment. And so it took a while to just be like, no, done doing that.
And like the only feeling that ended up making you finally feel okay and like have a peace was God.
100%.
Yeah.
It was like magic, not magic. It was God.
It does feel that way sometimes.
Because I'm just like, what? Like that's all I had to do this whole time?
Right.
Like, because in the moment I'm like, it doesn't seem like a prayer is just going to fix this for me. Like if I just sit here and just pray about it, no way I'm just going to feel okay tomorrow. But like I have to go do all these things. But the minute I did that, I'm not kidding. Like the peace I felt about the situation that I thought I would never feel.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I know, the peace that comes from him in the midst of you would think you would not be okay is just undescribable. That's what the verse about the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Literally.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. But it can be a process to get to that point.
Yeah.
So after that, when you felt okay, were you like over him?
Yeah. So at that point, it was such a weird feeling because I was like, I'm over him. There's a part of me that doesn't want to be over him because I still just was holding on to that like person I knew when we first started dating. Like he was just a different person at the time. Like when we first started dating, although his relationship was still a little rocky, like with the Lord, I was just holding on to that. And so a part of me didn't want to get out, like be like, I'm so done with him. But I knew, I was like, at this point, it's been a year pretty much, like we're done with that. If something down the road, whatever happens. But I was over him.
Yeah.
So but I guess I technically wasn't because it was the following March. So timeline wise, are we on track right now?
Yeah. So it went from
March 2020 is when we started dating. We like ended things the following March.
Okay.
And then the following March.
So y'all were split up for about a year.
A year. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And so he actually reached out to me randomly around that time, that March. And I will say, prior to that, like 3 to 4 months before that, I was seeing things like on social media, what his friends were posting, things like that. He had, from what it seemed like on the outside looking in, like I wasn't thinking it was anything. Like I was like, he's probably still doing all the same things. I wasn't just going to like jump back into a relationship or anything, but I had seen that he wasn't really hanging out around the same crowd. He was going to church. He had started his own Bible study. He was like leading it with like a bunch of guys. It seemed like everything he was doing, it seemed like he was just changing. And I was like, I wonder like why? Like what's he doing? Because it was like a whole 180. I was like, he went from doing this to now I'm seeing he's doing this. But again, I was just seeing it from like the outside, never talked to him about it or anything. When he did reach out, there was something in me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just because I was just so like, there was no pettiness anymore. It wasn't like I was mad at him. I wasn't feeling sad. I was just like, he texted me and I was like, something just told me, I was like, I'll just respond. Like, I'll just see what he wants, what he wants. And he just said, hey. And I was like, hi. And he was like, are you back at home? Because he was at school at the time. And I was like, yeah, I'm at home. And he's like, okay, I'm coming home tonight. Like, do you mind if we just talk? And I was just like, sure.
So interesting. A year later, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did you get like a butterfly feeling?
I was at the gym and I was walking on the treadmill and I don't know why, but like when he texted, I grabbed my phone so fast and I just responded. Like I didn't even hesitate. It was so weird. And I was like, oh my gosh. And like I said, since I did see he had been changing his ways, I was holding on to hope pretty much. I was just like, maybe he did change, but I wasn't like planning on, I wasn't like, oh, we're just going to get back together tonight. Like, yeah, he's different. But anyways, he ended up coming home and we talked because our houses are like 10 minutes away from each other. We just like met up and talked. And he had just told me, I mean, it was a whole long hours crying, everything, telling me like just about everything that happened, everything he's went through, bad stuff, and now what he's been doing to change that and turn his life around and everything. And it was crazy. Like it was,
wow.
It felt like I was talking to a whole different person. I was like, this doesn't even seem possible. And of course I was like, I'm not going to believe everything you tell me right now. Like, I don't know. Like, are you just going to go back to school tonight?
Right.
And, but he was like, no, I'm telling you. And then he told me he wanted to marry me. Like, he was like,
that night?
Yeah. Like, he was like,
gosh.
I know what I want now. Like, I want to be with you. I'm ready to like settle down and get married, all this stuff. And I was just like, what?
Because y'all hadn't talked in a year.
I was just like, this is really interesting.
What's happening?
Yeah. And so, but of course, I was just like, I was not just like falling for whatever he was telling me. And so he spent a lot of time at home because he was still in school. This was like mid-semester, but he was spending a lot of time at home. And we just we talked every day, just kind of like getting to know each other and really, make sure things were true and everything. And it wasn't for like, I think we did that for about 3 months, like talking every day, meeting up, like and talking, going to dinner. We would read the Bible like every day. And it wasn't until then I was like, okay, he is changed. Like this is crazy. And there's no other explanation for it other than Jesus, like completely changing his heart. It was just insane. And so we ended up getting back together. Then we started TikTok shortly after. Then we got engaged the same year. Then we got married 3 months later. And then we had a baby.
What a redemption story though. And I started in March, ended in March, got married in March.
And technically got pregnant in
March. On your honeymoon.
Yeah.
Wow.
March is our month. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just from meeting y'all and seeing just Jesus shine through both of y'all, and then you've told me snippets of y'all's story before, I'm like, wow. I would have never thought, because when you see somebody, Jesus truly transforms the person.
Yeah.
Completely different person. And it's nobody else can do that but Jesus.
I know. I was like, this isn't possible. There's no way that this is just like possible for you to do on your own.
Did that build your faith even more.
Yes. I mean, I was like, holy moly.
Yeah.
Like, it was a 180 switch. Because, most of the time when people break up and it's like they have to change, you're typically like, they'll never change. But this was like a heart change, life change. It was just, it was crazy.
I think that's beautiful too, that it was apart. Like, y'all were apart during that. And like, so he went through that whole year changing.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, you had no idea,
Yeah.
but that he came back to you.
I know.
That's
How
so
sweet.
sweet.
I know. We needed that time. If we wouldn't have like taken that time apart, who knows what would have happened. Like, would we have stayed together and it just would have been horrible like the rest of the time we were together, or what? Would he have not come to have like a super strong relationship with the Lord? I don't know. So we're really grateful for the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Because now looking back, it's like, oh, I feel like we've been together this whole time.
Yeah.
But
I love that too, because we both know so well, but doing social media now, it's almost like relationships can give a false hope.
yes.
And I know y'all are very open about that, about how like, hey, don't look at our relationship and think we're perfect. Like, y'all were like that from the beginning of TikTok. Is it because, I mean, that was so fresh going from the transformation y'all had?
Yeah.
And it was so fresh on your mind when people started commenting like, oh my gosh, y'all are so
All
perfect.
Yes. Yeah. One of the main reasons I want to do it is because I grew up in a very fairy tale kind of mindset. Like, I watched all the romance movies. I was like, my life is going to be like a movie. Like, I was like, it's just going to go this way. Nothing, because I hadn't experienced a lot of hardships. I was like, it's just going to be fairy tale life, and it's going to be like this movie, and we're going to fall in love, and you know what I mean? And so that actually, as I got older, that was really hard to realize that is not true.
Right.
Because just like throughout dating, like when things weren't going perfect, it was like, even my parents, because my parents told me, they're like, things aren't going to be perfect. Like, nobody's perfect. And I was like, oh, really?
Really?
I was like, wait, what? And so that was really hard for me. And just like watching couples on YouTube and things, it seemed so perfect. I'm like, this isn't perfect. Like, it wasn't making sense to me. And so it was actually a big lesson for me to learn. Like, no one's perfect. Your relationship's not going to be perfect and everything. And so when we got back together, and since all that had happened, I was like, I want people to know, like, yeah, we are great now. Like, our relationship is amazing now, but we're not perfect. And it would put a good perspective in people's heads, like, if they knew, like, our full story. And so it was like, we had started YouTube after TikTok, and I think it was like one of our second videos.
No, I remember.
We talked about the whole breakup, and I was scared because I was like, oh, like, are people going to like look at us differently now? People who break up, they're like, oh, they shouldn't get back together.
Well, I remember a lot of y'all's town, like, just were at y'all. And I think because we've talked about it, like, they knew that old Taylor, and they were like, no, he's faking it. And that just shows God can change you.
Yeah.
Was that hard? All of the, because random people that you don't know, you're like, okay, well, they just must not be happy. Like, they're just taking it out on somebody. But was that hard for y'all, seeing people you knew just like come at you like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I talk to Taylor about this all the time. People that I have no idea who they are, when they comment or anything, I'm just like, I don't care. They have no idea. They have literally no idea anything about us. But when you start seeing people from your hometown, or people not necessarily that we were friends with, but people we knew, like, we know their names, we know who they are, and they're saying all this stuff about you, and it hits a different way, because it's just like, it does. And we had a lot of that, because to some people, they hadn't seen Taylor's, they saw his actions, what he was doing, but they might not have fully seen how his life changed and stuff. And so people were making videos and saying like, oh, he, this is what he was doing, or this and that. And when we got back together, we were completely open with each other about everything that happened while we were apart and all that stuff. And so we knew not to believe anything people were saying, but it was just, it hurt. Yeah. It hurt a lot more than just random people, what they had to say.
Yeah.
So,
and I feel like that can be so hard for people to come to know God, because it's almost like they feel like they aren't allowed to.
Yeah.
Like, because they've lived this life, they've done all these wrong things.
They feel like it's too late.
And they feel like it's too late. They've already messed up so much. And so they're like, nobody, they're going to be like, yeah, you can't be a Christian.
Yeah.
And that's so not the truth. Like, God doesn't want you to be a perfect person to come to him. Like, we can come to him as we are. And it's like, I feel like a lot of the world's way of thinking is, well, I'm too lost.
Yeah.
He don't want any of this, but he's like, come to me as you are.
Yeah.
And then we can do the transformation process, but he just wants you to just seek him, go to him, find him in whatever you already are in, you know? And yeah, so those comments about that, I remember talking to you, and it was just so sad because it's, people just have no idea how the beauty of Jesus and coming to know him. So now you're a mom.
Yeah.
And you're so cute as parents. How have you already started like implementing? Or I know she's such a baby.
6 weeks old.
6 weeks old. But like, are you like, okay, I remember mom doing this and this. Like, what were some of those practical things that your parents did or that you want to do with Mary Marin?
Yeah. I know she's 6 weeks old, but I sing her Jesus songs and we listen to worship music and we read Jesus books, you know?
Yeah.
She's not gonna remember that. But I know that when she's old enough to just start talking and know what's going on, I know like just little things, because, you know, a child's not gonna fully understand. You kind of got to do it in ways, but like, you know, when she goes to bed, we can be like, let's say our prayers. That's like a sweet way. I remember my parents, it's such a brief memory, but like I said, I would be laying in their bed and we would just talk about heaven. They'd be like, aren't you so excited to get to heaven one day? Like, and as a kid, I was like, like I can have whatever I want in heaven. Like, I can have a bedroom with like cotton candy walls and my bed can be made out of clouds. Like, you know, and that's magical. It helps a kid when you put it in ways like that, because it helps them understand. And so we would just have talks like that all the time. I remember Peter from the Bible. I don't even remember why, but it was like, he's my favorite. Like, I cannot wait to meet him. That's the first person I want to meet when I get to heaven, like, after Jesus. But just little things like that, just constantly talking about him, and you know, as she gets older, it'll change and it'll look different. But just little things like that.
Do you remember doubting, like when you were little? Because little mind, you ask a lot of questions. Like Ivy is at the stage now.
Questions.
I'm reading a storybook and I read a few words and she's like, Mommy, what's that mean? You know, or why is she running like in the picture? Yeah. We're at the question stage.
It's like, I don't know. I don't know why she's running.
Right. And so now, even the other night, she was saying her tummy hurt. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, it's time for bedtime prayers. Let's pray. And I started praying. And instead of the now I lay me down to sleep prayer, it was, Jesus, we ask that you heal my tummy. Aww. Like, you know, just so simple. And she said, Mommy, that was a different prayer.
Oh, she noticed. She realized.
And I'm like, oh boy. Yeah. God help me. I don't want to do wrong. You know? And I know as long as we do the best. Yeah. But do you remember having a lot of questions when you were young, or doubts?
I know I had tons of questions, but I don't really remember doubting anything. I was more of just like, oh, really? Yeah. Like, okay, then what? And like, and he did that. Like, so, but I don't really remember having much doubt about anything.
So your parents did such a good job.
I know.
That's so sweet.
It's truly, like, I'm like, I don't know where I would be without them. And so that's why I'm like, oh my gosh, me and Taylor, like, that just makes me want to be the same way for her and our future kids. Because I'm like, they had the biggest impact on me. So.
Yes, I love that so much. That's so sweet. So speaking of your mom and dad, were there actions, you know, because actions speak louder than words. I remember watching my mom, like, wake up early, read the Bible. Yeah. And she never forced it on us. You know, it was almost, I just wanted to do what she did because she was a great person, loving, all of that. And so I was like, I want to be like her. Do you remember times like that of just your parents, like, watching them? Oh, yeah. My dad, all the time, he did this a couple times where he read the whole Bible in 30 days. Oh my, in 30 days? Yeah, and he did it multiple times. Like, he's read front and back multiple times. And so he's the wisest person I know. Like, he knows the stuff. You got a question, you can ask him, he'll tell you. Shoot, I'm going to ask him next time.
Yeah, and he's even told me there's like this thing, I think it's called Got Questions, where you can, like, he's like, this is the best site. Like, if you ever have a question about anything in the Bible that you're confused on, you just use this site. Like, he always send me devotionals all the time, and just every night, like, say your prayer, just all these little things, and everything I saw them do. And they were a great role model in the way of, like, their relationship together, like their marriage. And just everything. I just feel like everything they did, I saw, and it all reflected the Lord.
And now you can remember that and take that into your parenthood
Mm-hmm.
and relationship.
Yes.
How has y'all's relationship been since becoming parents? I know she's only 6 weeks old, but have y'all started to see maybe challenges arising with communication or anything like that?
It's actually interesting. I feel like our relationship is like even stronger since having her. I was really worried because I was like, oh, you hear like that for those first weeks, like you're not getting any sleep. It can just cause, like when I don't get sleep, I'm probably not going to be the best person to be around. When he doesn't get sleep, he's probably, and it could just cause a lot of arguments and stuff. But I don't know, watching him be a dad and just like, it's just been great. It's just been the best. I'm sure when she gets older and there's a lot more talk about how we want to parent in certain ways. And of course we agree on most of things just since our beliefs are the same, but it's just, I think as she gets older, there might be a little bit more conflict about certain things. But right now we're just like in baby heaven.
I know.
I feel like, and it's all just been so
It really
fun.
is so sweet watching your husband become a dad. It's like you learn to love them in a new way.
Yeah. And a girl dad. I don't know what it is. I'm just like, it's so cute.
I remember being in high school, and this is so immature of me. I mean, this was whenever I was I had like a toxic phase of behavior mindset. And I'm in like, I do not want to have a little girl one day because she's gonna take all the attention from him. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing that you. I was like 13.
That is hilarious.
I know, but now it's such a beautiful relationship.
It's so cute.
I'm like, you can think she's the most beautiful girl in the world because I think that. Yeah, it's so sweet and just oh gosh, and to know. Speaking of a father and daughter, and just to know, just a father in general, like our Father in heaven sees us that way.
I know. It puts a different perspective here because, like, I look at her and I'm like, the amount I love you and like how perfect I think, like, it's just crazy to think of how much you love your child, and it's like, well, and he loves us like a million times more than that. It's just crazy.
I know.
It puts things in a different perspective.
It really does. Yeah. And like even just already thinking about, I mean, we have little girls. I remember going through the phase of really talking down on myself at certain points. I didn't look a certain way or whatever. And then even my mom saying, oh, Jesus doesn't want to hear you say that about yourself or, Yeah. And so as a parent, I'm like, I never want to hear her say that about herself.
Right.
And so thinking things I say about myself, I'm like, God doesn't want me to say that about myself.
Yep.
Like we're his daughters and they're his sons, and we're just
that's it. Yeah,
so perfect.
I got chills. It's like it puts things in such a different perspective. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like disappointing your parents, Yeah, it really does shift everything. Like whenever, if I have to get onto her for something, it's not that I don't love her,
right? And
so same way how there's consequences for sin and stuff. God never stops loving us,
right?
He wants us just to not do that because he sees how dangerous it can be. If Ivy's running in the road, I'm going to be like, no.
Right.
But
you're just looking out for her.
I'm just looking out for her. It's not because I don't love her.
Right. It's because you love her.
It's because I love her. Like, yeah. And wow, that's just so sweet.
Crying.
I know. Okay, so I know we're getting to the end of this, but I really want to talk about just, we talked about how you have such a young audience and young girls, and I mean, being in the public eye, like we're influencers. Yeah. But that's not just a word. Like people watch us and they probably learn from that.
Oh, yeah.
Or take that in. Or so having such a young audience, like young girls, like does that make you nervous at all in the sense of, you're in the spotlight, making a mistake in the spotlight or...
Yeah, it is kind of nerve-wracking sometimes because it's like they're kind of watching your every move. I know at least when I try to put it in perspective, like, okay, when I was watching these people, you kind of like, if you really like this person, you kind of want to do what they do. Like if you believe the same things they do, you watch what they do and you do it too. Or I know I did that. And so, yeah, it can be nerve-wracking because a lot of people look up to us, and just like the messages I get, it's like,
do you feel that pressure to always be like maybe put on to not disappoint these young girls that are watching you, or like in yours and Taylor's relationship or whatever? I will say y'all have done such a good job of being transparent though, that I feel like we talked about the false sense of hope earlier or whatever. Like if they keep watching y'all and watch those things, they'll see that you're just doing the best you can.
Right.
And encouraging that, knowing you're not perfect.
Right.
You know, all of that.
And it can be hard because you're never going to film, like, you know, when we're filming a TikTok, we're never going to film the bad moment. Like, we're not going to be like, oh, we're arguing. Let's film this for a TikTok. No one's going to want to watch that too. Why would we do that? So I think it is just good to be transparent, open about it in other ways. Like, yeah, we have arguments and stuff. There's a lot of times where we go to film a TikTok, but we're arguing. So it's like, okay, we're not going to film a TikTok.
Yeah, or, no, been there,
you know,
girl.
Yeah, we're filming a YouTube video. And it can be hard. Like, if you're vlogging all day, you're bound to have maybe a little disagreement throughout that. And so it can be hard because it's like, oh, no, we got to keep filming. But we don't want to be like fake on the vlog, like fake happy. And so we do just try to be open about it in other ways. Like if you watch our YouTube, we're just like, no, we're not perfect. We have arguments and stuff. We're not going to show that stuff, but it does happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's so good. And like what if there's a young girl watching right now, and what is just from everything, it could be pulled from any situation you've been through or whatever, is there something that you feel like you just would want to say to them?
So my favorite Bible verse is Jeremiah 29:11, talking about like the plans for your life and stuff, because growing up before I met Taylor and everything, I was a nervous wreck all the time. Just like, I want to know, like, am I going to get married? Am I going to have kids? Like, what's going to happen? What is the plan for my life? And so that Bible verse has always stuck with me. And I just think for young girls, because I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, you know, especially a lot of the young girls who watch us, because it's all just couple stuff and things like that. Just to trust God and his plan for your life, even if you're going through a hard time, maybe similar to something like I went through, whether or not that means you had a breakup and you don't know if you're going to get back together or not, or if you had a breakup and you're trying to trust that God will bring you someone else, just put your trust in God no matter what. Cliche.
Yeah,
cliche.
no, that's so, I mean, it's so real.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I know we say, it sounds cliche because it's based on a Bible verse or whatever, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Like, it's the truth, and that's why it's in the Word. You grew up knowing there was a plan for your life, and just to see it playing out now.
Yeah.
And, like, knowing we live in a fallen world, so it's going to be imperfect.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's a plan in it all.
Yes.
And in the hardships, sometimes we have to go through the hard things to get to the other side, because you learn. That's how you grow.
100%.
All of those things. But well, I'm just so glad you came on here today.
I'm honored.
I know. I just love you so much. And y'all, she is literally a gem. You can, if you're around her, you just feel your light.
Oh.
And from Taylor, you know, y'all are a power couple and going to do some big things for Jesus in this world. And he has some big plans coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Is that okay we say any of that?
Yeah,
or
we can.
Just possibility?
About, so he's considering going into seminary school, and is that what you were talking about?
Yes, like, that's just going from us talking about his transformation and for y'all's relationship and stuff, that shows even more so, like, God is so cool.
Yeah, no, he's doing some great things. He's already working on right now, like, leading a college ministry, because he has experience with that from working at another church and stuff, but he might want to go to actual, like, seminary school and do schooling so he can really get all the knowledge.
That's
and
awesome.
Stuff. So,
Oh, yeah. See, power couple right there, on fire for the Lord. Yeah. It's just so beautiful. Well, if y'all want to follow her, she's on all the platforms. Their couples pages are on TikTok. Y'all don't have a couples Instagram, do you?
No, not Instagram.
It's just separate. YouTube. Sophia, Taylor. Yeah. YouTube, Sophia and Taylor.
Yeah.
TikTok, Sophia and Taylor. Anyways, they are a great couple to follow. But yeah, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank y'all for watching. Bye.
Bye.